We all know the traditional story of Superman versus Zod. Before the planet Krypton blew up, General Zod tried to take over, but he was stopped and banished to the Phantom Zone. So ultimately, Zod and his loyalists survived the destruction of Krypton. And Jor-El saw the destruction of Krypton coming, so he sent his son to Earth, where he became Superman. Years later, after Superman has gained some experience using his powers, Zod shows up and tries to take over, but Superman stops him. Before he started fighting crime, Superman, aka Clark Kent, grew up on a farm and never enlisted in the military. So how does a general with the same superpowers lose a fight to him? The answer is Superman has more experience using his superpowers. Zod hasn't been on Earth for very long while Superman grew up there, and has had his entire life to learn about how to use his superpowers. And Superman only had more experience with those superpowers because they get those superpowers from Earth's yellow sun. And it obviously helps that Superman had so much time to grow up first, because when Superman first got to Earth he was a baby, and babies cannot fight off alien invasions. To simplify things, Superman's advantage over Zod was that he got to Earth first. But what if Zod had that advantage instead? What if Zod got to Earth before Superman? Let's back up to the beginning. It's been a long time since I've seen Man of Steel, but if I'm remembering correctly, I think that in Man of Steel, Zod and Jor-El used to be all buddy-buddy with each other. So Jor-El told Zod, the planet's gonna blow up and the leaders won't listen to me about it. So Zod decided that he should be the leader of the world because he will listen to Jor-El. I think that's how it went in Man of Steel. So let's say, what if Zod's reaction to being told that the planet is going to blow up is instead to pack up his people and leave as soon as possible? Jor-El does eventually send Superman to Earth, but in this timeline, Zod and company are never trapped in the Phantom Zone, so they get to Earth slightly before baby Superman does. And as we have established, babies cannot fight off alien invasions, so there's no one who can stop Zod from taking over. Now I know I took a little bit of inspiration from the Man of Steel version of things with that whole Jor-El and Zod being buddy-buddy thing, but I'm really not considering this an offshoot of the Man of Steel timeline. So let's switch gears to taking inspiration from Superman 2. This version of Zod does not want to terraform the planet and exterminate humanity. He goes straight for the president and tells him that this is his country now. So the president tells the rest of the country that this is Zod's country now. And at first that doesn't work because Americans don't like aliens telling them that they own the place. But after a few weeks of Zod blowing stuff up, they change their political views. But there's still the rest of the world to oppose Zod's reign, and Zod only has a few Kryptonians on his side. Let's say less than 100. How about, just for the sake of this what if, let's say that Zod only has 50 Kryptonians. And as powerful as Kryptonians are, they can't be everywhere at once, so how can 50 Kryptonians take over the whole planet? What they do is, they already have America, so they conscript American soldiers to be their military with a very effective strategy. What they do is, they have the Kryptonians go in either alone or with like 2 or 3 to destroy enemy military bases and wreak havoc on well-protected areas, and then they send in their human troops to easily take over the territory that's left with little to no defenses. And every time they take over an area, there's more people to conscript into their military. After a few short years, the entire planet kneels before Zod. But while all that was going on, the Kents have begun raising Kal-El, now known as Clark Kent. They are very aware that Clark is another Kryptonian, however they can't bring themselves to get rid of their baby, so they continue to raise him while encouraging him to never let anyone find out that he's a Kryptonian. John and Martha Kent are old enough to remember the terrorism that Zod inflicted on America, but as Clark grows up, he starts seeing that people seem to be kind of happy with Zod in charge. He's also tempted to buy into the idea that it's a good thing Zod took over, because it's either that or thinking that his own species is a plague and he can't handle that. The reasons people seem so happy with Zod is he's brought order to things, introduced new technologies. The problem with Zod is he has a "if you step out of line, you'll be punished" policy. So the people who don't step out of line don't see the problem with Zod's regime. And the people who do step out of line tend to disappear before they can tell anyone else why. There's a reason why in real life the worst dictators tend to be loved by their people. It's because they do all their nasty stuff behind closed doors and they control the narrative that's being pushed. There's also the fact that good leaders will tell you what you need to hear and bad leaders will tell you what you want to hear. So in my opinion, you should never trust the leader of a nation who's not controversial. Some of the best presidents in American history made people really angry in their time. So the way General Zod runs things is, if a reporter speaks out against him, they're found with 2 bullet wounds in the back of their head, next to a note that talks about no foul play being done. So when Clark ages into adulthood, he can't help but rescue a cat from a tree here, repair a door there, and that sort of escalates into him saving entire planes full of people and fighting the occasional supervillain. Yes, there's 50 other Kryptonians around, but Superman notices that those 50 Kryptonians tend to see natural disasters or villains of the week as beneath their notice, so Superman takes upon himself to handle problems like that. Actually, Zod has more than 50 Kryptonians now because the Kryptonians he brought with him have had time to reproduce. So Superman quickly grows popularity, and of course he gains the notice of General Zod. So Zod goes to Superman and he says, "Hey Superman, you are a Kryptonian and I like that. How's about you work for me now?" And Superman is very concerned that working for General Zod would mean posing for pictures and making speeches instead of actually rescuing people. And on the flip side, Superman does not want to provoke Zod's unfathomable wrath. So he tells him, "Hey, I think it's great that you have brought order to the planet, but I think that I kind of like doing things the way I've been doing things." And of course, Zod wants to just kill Superman for his insolence, but he also knows that if he kills the hero of the people, the populace will become infinitely unhappy with him. So he tells him, "Okay, you can continue to serve my empire the way you've been doing it, but if you ever even consider thinking about overthrowing my reign, I am gonna..." "Oh, no, I would never do such a thing. That's that. See that you don't." So Superman continues to do his superhero thing, and one day he rescues a woman named Lois Lane from a supervillain. And after the fact, Lois begs Superman for a minute of his time to talk with him, and she tells him about a small group of would-be rebels. Lois has 2 major gripes against General Zod. One, she wanted to be a reporter, but she was disillusioned by the fact that reporters aren't allowed to report stories that would conflict with Zod's rhetoric. And there's also the fact that her dad was obliterated during the early days of Zod's invasion. Lois wants Superman to not only be a part of the rebellion, but also to inspire other people to join. Lois tells Superman about all these different nasty things she's found out about Zod. Criminals who were supposedly executed for their crimes are actually being used as slaves, even if their crimes weren't that drastic. Assassinations are happening constantly, and the elections for governors and senators are just a hoax put in place to make the populace think that they've been choosing the candidates that are loyal to Zod. Now, Superman, of course, thinks that these things are horrible, if what Lois says is true, but he's not liking the idea of starting a huge revolution. The way he figures it, if they start a huge war against Zod, The best case scenario is thousands of people die in the battles. And the worst case scenario is Zod pulls a "if I can't have Earth, no one can" and blows up the whole planet out of spite. So like he did with Zod, he tells them thanks but no thanks. But unlike Zod, he's not afraid of these rebels, so he tells them exactly what he thinks of their organization, and encourages them to stop playing with fire and go home. But even though Superman rejected the offer to join the rebellion, he's struck by Lois's can-do attitude, and he can't get all that stuff she said about Zod out of his head. So after a few weeks of him ruminating that meeting, he hears Lois cry out for help with his super hearing, and he finds her about to be killed by a few Kryptonians. They had found the rebels, which wasn't hard because they have super hearing too, and they're about to be hauled off to be immediately executed. The Kryptonians try to tell Superman that this is none of his business and he should move along, but after some desperate pleas from Lois, Superman intervenes and fights off the two Kryptonians, rescuing the rebels. Now, as we've clarified, Superman really doesn't want to start a whole war against Zod's regime, but now that he's just rescued some rebels from Zod's forces who will doubtlessly tell their boss about it, he's kind of been forcibly dragged into this conflict. Lois again pleads for Superman to inspire thousands or millions of people to join the fight, but he refuses. He doesn't want to ask normal people to die in a bloody war. However, he also panics because it's public knowledge that he helped the rebels against the Kryptonians, so if nothing else, the rebels can use that to inspire more people to join their fights. So Superman is desperate to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. He is not willing to kill off an entire empire's worth of people, and even if he could, the death toll wouldn't be worth it, so he decides on just attacking the emperor of this empire. So he goes to Zod and he tells him, "Dude, you have to knock it off before half the population of Earth gets wiped out." And of course Zod says, "I will never knock it off," and then they do battle. So in this timeline, where 20-ish years ago Zod got to Earth before Superman did, who wins in a fight between Superman and Zod? Now yes, Zod has a ton of military experience. He's also had plenty of time to get used to his powers, but ever since Zod took over Earth, he's been letting himself get soft. He's been doing more dictating than he's been doing fighting, and he hasn't been seeking out enemies that would give him a challenge in battle. Meanwhile, Superman has been fighting mad scientists, wizards, giant monsters, you name it, Superman has been fighting it. So he's gotten used to fighting enemies that can actually fight back. Zod has become overconfident and lazy, while Superman remains determined and disciplined. Zod is used to using simple gestures to kill weaker humans, but that doesn't work against Superman. Superman keeps hitting Zod with his full strength, and Zod has never been on the receiving end of such power before. Zod tries to use his heat vision, but his aiming can't keep up with such a fast target. And Superman's heat vision is trained to burn the flesh of the most durable opponents. By the time Zod realizes he was wrong to underestimate his enemy and focuses on unleashing his full efforts, it is too late. He's already taken too much damage to turn the tide in his favor, and Superman wins. Now, we all know that Superman doesn't like to kill people, but in this scenario, what else is he gonna do with him? I mean, he can't send him to prison because Zod currently controls the legal system. Oh wait, the Fortress of Solitude has the technology to send someone to the Phantom Zone. No, hang on. Superman has the technology to send someone to the Phantom Zone. However, Zod's people also have the technology to bring someone out of the Phantom Zone. So sending him to the Phantom Zone wouldn't work either. So Superman swallows his hesitation and tells himself, just this one time. And he kills Zod. With Zod dead, his second in command, Ursa, takes over. So Superman goes to Ursa and he says, "You are going to be better than General Zod was, or else." I'm gonna tell the people about all the nastiness that Zod was up to, and if you play nice, I could tell them that things don't have to be the same with you. Now, Ursa isn't really a better person than Zod was. However, she does know that if Superman could kill Zod, then he could definitely kill her. And she's also hesitant to have Superman killed because that would make the populace angry. And she does know that cleaning up the regime is the only way to stop the rebellion from growing. So Superman has his noble reasons for wanting things to be better, and Ursa has her selfish reasons for wanting the system to be better, so the system gets better. So from then on, Superman works with Lois to check up on things, make sure those slave camps are actually empty like they're supposed to be, make sure those reporters are allowed to tell the actual truth. The Kryptonian government stays in place, but Superman becomes he who watches the Watchmen. The Kryptonians know that if they do something horribly, horribly wrong, then Superman and Lois will tell the people about it. So they have to be on their best behavior. It might not be perfect, but when has the world ever been perfect? It's better than when Zod was alive, at least. So that was What If Zod Got to Earth Before Superman. This is the first non-Disney princess what if video I've made. The other what ifs I've done are what if the Beast could never be human again, the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, and what if Ariel rejected Ursula's deal, that's the Little Mermaid, of course. If you like this video, you might also like those what ifs. There was another what if I did that was a segment of my Rapunzel and Flynn / Eugene Part 1 video. That what if was, what if Rapunzel was never kidnapped? You might also like that one. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and get to Earth before Zod does.